Do you see any comparison between people with Urantia values instilled in them and Christians?
At the beginning, I really felt like I was part of a very different movement than the larger Christian movement. As I've gone on, I feel like I'm part of the larger Christian community. We're all part of the people who believe in Jesus. And more importantly, we're all part of an even larger family that believes in God.
We are thrilled to introduce to you a unique and inspiring session titled In Spite of Ourselves, the Wood Family and Urantia. They were raised in a household deeply rooted in the teachings of the Urantia book. These brothers have each navigated their own spiritual journeys, incorporating the book's cosmic truths into their respective families and lives. Despite their diverse pasts, they remain united by a common love for the Big Blue Book and a shared commitment to living out its principles.
The Wood brothers have maintained a strong bond and a collective wisdom that they will share with us today.
Stage is all you guys.
So, we are the Wood Boys of Kansas City. There's Mark. There are 6 of us. As the nice introduction said, we were raised by 2 Urantia Book readers. Boy, I should have been paying attention when my parents were talking. I think that they found the Urantia Book sometime about the time that they were married. And this would have been the mid-70s. And then shortly thereafter, starting in 76, they started having kids one after the other about every 2 to 3 years until there were 6 of us, with the last one born in 1989. So I was told by others that at every conference, they would see Mike Wood and he was constantly carrying an infant, and all that would change is the number of children following behind him, like ducks following the parent duck. And so, ducklings probably. And so we've got 5 of the 6 of us here right now. So here's the thing. Half of us work in big event, putting on big events. So if you think about music festivals and how they take an empty field in the middle of nowhere and turn it into a place where 60,000 people can show up and all have bathrooms and places to park and food to get to, it's the Wood Boys who put that together. And so half of us are at Bonnaroo right now in Tennessee. And so roughly half of us have a good excuse for being tired and unwashed. We'll let you judge which one of us are in the middle of a field right now. So 5 of us are here. Noah's going to come at some point and give his 5 or 10 minutes of talking. And a couple of my brothers who are actively working right now are going to talk in the beginning, and then they might have to leave in order to deal with an emergency somewhere. So one last thing I just want to say as an introduction to this is that this is unprecedented for our family because we've never actually talked about this. There's this quote from the Urantia book. It's kind of in the back somewhere. It's on the right-hand side, kind of toward the bottom. And it's in the Jesus parts, and it says that the 3 apostles, Jesus was talking to the apostles, the 3 apostles were shocked this afternoon when they realized that their master's religion made no provisions for spiritual self-examination. All religions before and after the times of Jesus, even Christianity, carefully provided for conscientious self-examination, but not so with the religion of Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus' philosophy of life is without religious introspection. And so we don't sit around talking about how special we are that all 6 of us have this book that we like to read, or how, we've come into it. We don't do that self-examination because we were raised by parents who didn't do that self-examination. So we're possibly committing some sort of heresy by even participating in this, but we'll plunge right ahead for the good of the entertainment of the Urantia community. With that said, I want to start this off. I think where we're going to start is just we're going to let all 6 brothers just tell their story about, how it was like to be raised, what they think of the Urantia book, how they made that transition, and anything that they're incorporating from the early days into now their own life of raising children, because all 6 of us have either raised or are raising children. So Matthew is in the middle of Tennessee and is working, and so we're going to let him go first, just in case he has to go away. This is my youngest brother, Matthew. We all kind of look the same, more or less, but he's the youngest one, and he is ready to go. Matthew, take it away.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Matthew. I'm the second funniest Wood brother to Chris, also known as Chris's brother Matthew. Also, people know me as a wood brother that is Chris's younger brother, et cetera, et cetera. Chris so kindly put together a list of prompt questions for us today, and I'll go ahead and jump right into that. Just an introduction to myself. I throw large scale events in the music industry. I call it it's a chance. I build platforms for 60,000 18 to 30-year-olds to have a chance to wake up and see that we're all people and we're all loving beings of creation, and that we have a chance to take care of each other and help each other through the darkness of this world. So, just to touch on Chris's introduction, I'm glad you guys can't smell me because you might be a little disappointed, but I apologize for my appearance. As you can see, the pain in my eyes, it's from a lack of sleep and a dedication to my craft. So, see, Chris laid out some really nice prompt questions because he's really good at just keeping us organized as a crew. So he said, "Why do you read the Urantia book?" Well, currently in the last 3 years, I haven't really been reading the Ranch book. I'm not gonna lie. I think that men's brains change when you become a dad. I would go ahead and take that a step further. I came from a family of all boys, and my experience has been slightly jaded, maybe limited, but I am now a girl dad, and so my brain has certainly changed in the last 3.5 years. I don't think they ever really teach it in sex ed class that when you have a child, you're going to be worried about this thing for the rest of your life. That would be my leading statement in sex ed class. But now that I'm a girl dad, she is my everything and she is my number one concern. And frankly, I don't have time to read the Urantia book anymore. But why did I read the Urantia book in the first place? Well, there's this little piece of infinity deep inside my soul that when I was in college had driven me to read the Urantia book with a couple of close friends. So we sat down over about 2 months and actively crushed through papers. I think at our high point, we were ripping through 7 papers a day, which was a special number in the Rancher book. On our off days, we'd hit 3. Sometimes we'd have special guests in there. A brother would show up to the house and join us. I remember certainly Seth joining for a few of those papers. It was my friend Bo and Matt Martin, who have kind of grown apart from. Bo's on another plane of existence, and Matt Martin's in another world. But those two guys kind of sat down with me, committed to reading the Urantia book after coming up in a Urantia family. I'm going to hit some points on how to trick your children into reading the Urantia book. One, don't rush it. Like a well-cooked pasta dinner, al dente. If you take it out too early, it's not going to be very good. You're better off just letting it finish out. No rush here. Two, have some faith. They're born into a family where they have active Urantia book readers. Who are you to tell them when it's time to start picking up the teachings of the Urantia book? Odds are high that if you present the platform them for them, they will pick it up on their own. If they're your children, there's a good chance that they have a good spiritual openness for it. And if it's the right place, right time, then I'm sure it'll work out. And if not, who are you to say what they should be doing anyway? You should just worry about your own business. So, I guess continuing on, let kids be kids. I never went to a Urantia book and participated in any of the programming. Still don't. If I go to the Rancher conference, I skip most of the programming, almost exclusively hang out at the back alleys, at the catering events, lunch, dinner, breakfast are my favorite parts of the Rancher conference, and of course the late night music. I would say if you're bringing your kids to a Rancher conference, let kids be kids, frankly. For me, my first memory that was positive at a Urantia conference was playing Ultimate Frisbee on Staten Island in 2000, 1999. I don't even know. That was when I first picked up Ultimate Frisbee. Loved the experience. Made so many good friends that weekend. I think I met Mike McIsaac that weekend. He was like 15 years older than me, and we're still best friends. Maybe he's not that old. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. At the time, he seemed way older. But I made friends that that weekend that will last a lifetime. And I'll tell you, it certainly wasn't in the programming at the conference. And I still live by that. If I'm going to a Urantia conference, I'm probably not showing up to the programming. Maybe the morning intros, probably not. But that's me. You guys do you. Don't let's see. Don't force God on them. Let them decide when it's time. I think that was kind of my introductory statement. My parents, especially my mom, my dad was really just kind of, he just would answer questions when I had them. But my mom spoke of God as if it was just a matter of fact, very nonchalant. It was never oh, we believe in this thing and blah, 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 that this is, it was just like, no, God is real and real is love. And this is a matter of fact, take it or leave it, but we're all, beings of love and we're here to help each other. And that's what it's all about. It was just straight, matter of fact, not trying to trick me into anything. So I think that if you can just lead by example, try to just live the teachings, if you will, then that's your best bet at finding success in raising your children and not scaring them away from this book that you've become obsessed over in your life, which understandably so. It's a great book. And I've been lucky enough to have grown up in the teachings of it and kind of incorporated into my being. For me, spreading love and joy is the most high that I can find in this world. I literally have made it my professional and my personal objective to treat others with kindness, to do it right. Even on a bad day, I try and remind myself uh, to take the time to be grateful for something. If I'm having a bad day, I try and find an expression. The other day here at Bonnaroo, I was totally worn out. I was grumpy with my crew, and I had a conversation with my friend Justin, and it ended up changing my whole day. I went from being just in a crappy mood to being really emotional and grateful and grounded. And so I used that opportunity and I took our 30-minute conversation. I put it into about a 2-minute poem. I expressed it into a creative thing, and I ended up presenting that poem at the department head meeting, which is totally outlandish. No one ever does that. But I took the poem, I read it to the department head meeting, and I really feel like I changed the trajectory of the event. And one little instance of taking a bad day and making it, trying to make it better for myself through acknowledging that I was having a bad day and changing it for the better. And then that bad day, my bad morning ended up having ripples across the entire event. All of the department heads were changed by it and took that to their people. And now the staff as a whole has been better for it. And the vibe, as we call it, you can't read it on my shirt, but this is our company shirt. It's Foresight Group. And we have Vibe Tech right there on the sleeve. And the concept of Vibe Tech is we are here to tech vibes. If you are having a bad day, we'll take our time to try and fix your experience. We'll try to help you. We'll try to perform some service act, give you some of this precious time that we've been given. I didn't ask to be born. I don't know when I'll die. Tomorrow is gone, and yesterday isn't promised, and I'm here for this moment. And the way I don't grow jaded in life, and that I don't grow jaded in events, is that I truly enjoy giving people love and spreading joy and taking the time to actively do that. So I think as far as my notes go, I don't have any more jokes for you guys, so I think I'm just gonna wrap it up. But signing out, this is Chris's brother Matt. Thanks for having me here.
Good job, Matthew. Funny story about Matthew is that when he was a kid, we all told him that he wasn't really a wood boy, that he was left on our front porch by gypsies. And we kind of told that to all of the boys, but Matthew was the one who believed it. And so once when he was about 5 or 6 in the middle of a grocery store, he just laid down and had a fit and yelled, "You're not my real mom. I belong to the gypsies." And then he grew up and he now lives a gypsy lifestyle. He just packs up his trucks, goes from place to place, sets up, does his thing, packs up again, and goes to the next place. So you're welcome, Matthew. Next brother is my brother Mark. He's the second youngest brother. But he is the first one of us to become a father. And so he has been a parent for just about as long as he's not been a parent in this world. And so Mark, what have you got to add?
So hi, my name's Mark. People call me not Chris and number 5. I remember as a child, we had study groups every week. It was generally a positive experience. Either, other kids would come over, so it was fun. Yeah, we'd go to conferences. That was even more fun. So I guess just growing up, Urantia Book always had a really positive influence over me. It was always a fun time. I'd say when I was about 14, Noah and Chris and I went to Mexico. And I tried to read the foreword and decided, nah, I'm not reading that. And I skipped right ahead to part 3 and 4, powered through those in a couple of weeks. I think when I was like 23, 24, then I decided to finally go from the beginning to the end. Did that over a couple of months. Yeah. So it's definitely been a good influence on my life. I forget what the notes were of what we were supposed to say here, Chris. Do you have any questions that might help?
There anything from your childhood or from the Urantia book that you tried to impart while raising Connor?
Oh, I suppose a lot of the common sense things. Just try to have a positive attitude. Connor is really, I don't know. I mean, he's a wood boy, but he's right there with one of the most positive humans I've ever met. It's kind of blows my mind. So I'd like to think that rubbed off from me somewhat, but I don't know if I believe that. And it's Seth helping me with the huge part of that process. So still not sure if Seth's where he got it. I can only imagine it was just the environment we provided was a happy place. Interestingly enough, Connor has not really gotten into the Urantia book that much. But I think we've definitely instilled a lot of the values that we learned from our childhood. And I mean, I went from being a kid to being a dad like that. So I suppose it was just an extension of my childhood.
Yeah, I think Connor's one of the best instances of living the teachings without ever having read it. So somehow he's gotten this secondhand circuitry where he doesn't, I guess he's technically a third generation reader, so maybe that has something to do with it. But I'm not sure he needs to read the Urantia book, quite frankly. He is so spiritually powerful that it impresses me every day. And I frankly am not going to tell him how to live his life. He's probably the most adult person I know, and he's 19 years old, so 18 years old. So, yeah, no advice needed for Connor, and I don't think a book's going to teach him anything he's not already actively pushing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say he's more of an adult than I am.
So I guess
sure.
congratulations, Mark, is what I really wanted to get out of that. Congratulations on raising Connor because he is one of the coolest humans I've met, and so great work as a dad, and also great work to Seth. You guys really killed it on that one on the dual dads raising of Connor. He's a cool kid.
So as a family of traveling gypsies, we are, of course, first and foremost scientists. So let me drop some science on the group. The Wood Boys, starting with Mike, started producing more Wood Boys starting in 1976, and that continued through the 6 of us, and then continued through the grandchildren up through 2019. With the start of COVID, we only started producing girls, and then once COVID ended and we're now in post-COVID times, we're back to only producing boys. I don't know why this is, but it is definitely science, and I encourage the scientists in the Urantia community to really try to figure that one out. So that said, until Matthew shows up, until Noah shows up, and we've got to really cut to Matthew, I thought maybe Seth could go next. Seth is the oldest of us. He's also a lawyer in Kansas City, and due to just necessity and need, he stepped in to be a second parent to Connor when a second parent was desperately needed. And so Seth and Mark really raised this great kid until he's now 18. He just turned 18 and graduated high school. So I think they're done now. I don't think you have to do anything with kids after they're 18, right? So Seth, your turn. What have you got to say?
So I'm the oldest brother, although now that I'm getting these gray hairs, I prefer the term original. I'm the original brother. And certainly I've had a similar experience to the other kids as far as enjoying Urantia conferences as a child, playing and doing fun things more than having something that appealed to my intellectual side. I remember playing pool was the funnest thing I ever did at Urantia conference. I always forget his name, but some of the older readers in the community will remember that there was an old Catholic priest running around in those days, and he taught me how to play pool at the Maine conference there up in Maine, not the standard conference, but the one that took place in the state of Maine. And I was about 11 or 12 years old, and it was the time of my life, and I associated Urantia conferences with fun, so I think that had a lot to do with it. So I've sat here and listened to this first 30 minutes, and it's slowly dawning on me that this was not one of Chris's jokes. Chris has a somewhat unique sense of humor, and when he told me that we were going to make a presentation to the Urantia community as a model for how to get your kids to read the Urantia book, I figured at least 50-50 there was a chance that this was just his sense of humor. So I feel like I have to start out saying two things, and I'm not trying to crush anybody's spirit or anything, but the first is that I'm not sure that reading the Urantia book is a fair reflection of how you've done as a parent. And I don't even think it's a fair reflection narrowly focused on how you've done helping their spiritual development. So I would be very slow if there's any parents out there that are struggling with why their children aren't responsive to the teachings of the Urantia book. I would take it easy on yourself, because it's really hard to say why some people take to it and some people don't. And it's not even clear to me that there's anything we did to deserve this. I think it's arguably explainable just by random variation. I just can't help but think the quote that always comes to mind whenever I hear somebody looking to try to figure out how somebody should read the Urantia book is the quote from the Solitary Messenger that says that, I can't help but observe that so many of you spend so much time and thought on mere trifles of living and almost wholly overlook the more essential realities of everlasting import, that being communication with your inner adjuster, and that remember that that's largely a unconscious experience. So to try to consciously figure out how you're going to teach your kids to be a part of the Urantia book, I'm not even sure it is a worthy goal. But let's assume that I'm willing to grant that. I'm not sure that we're a model for anything. So I would be very careful following us on the techniques that we've used as a model for anything. If anything, we've just been lucky, and I'm just grateful that the Urantia book is part of my life. But I would be very slow to say that anything I've done or anything that our parents did intentionally led to this. It may have happened because of their loyalties. It may have happened because of their values. I don't think it happened as part of an intentional plan. So with those two caveats said, I am really grateful to have been part of the Urantia book. I do think surely surely at this conference we've talked about just a tadpole being left to be a tadpole and let it turn into a frog itself, and that kids are mostly impressed with the loyalties of their parents, and that those are the kind of things that we should be focused on, and not so much necessarily trying to judge ourselves and how we've done as parents. Because my experience has been, if you're asking yourself the question of whether or not you did a good job being the spiritual leader for your children, you've done a good job, because the ones who do a bad job don't even ask the question.
Hey, Seth, quick question. Do you take any credit for Chris?
Well, I'll tell you, I give Seth a whole lot of credit. I'm very grateful to Seth because he is the original Wood Boy. And if Seth would have been born like Matthew, I think Mike and Cindy would have just stopped having kids. They would just been like, done, perfected. But instead, he turned out like Seth. And so they had to keep trying another and another and another. And then maybe one of the kids needed spare parts. So they had Joel just in case, like, I run out of a liver at something. And then they just kept going and going. And then we got Matthew. And so then they were finally done.
sometimes I do think that by the time we had established ourselves as a family that might have read the Urantia book, Chris hadn't quite shown up yet. So the parents were reading the book. I was born during that time, but by the time Chris was born, it was pretty clear that anybody who was paying attention could tell that this was a potential Urantia family growing. And my guess is that for the younger children, the thought adjusters were quite literally lined up around the planet waiting to volunteer to jump into the 5 younger ones. And that I probably just got more of a random lot. And so I think that as we went on and on, I think we got a higher quality of adjuster volunteering to indwell us. And I think that there's some reason to think that, at least. And certainly it's true with Chris that it's possible that we all read the Urantia book simply to have cleared the way for Chris to come and do some of the service that he's doing. Again, I don't have any idea why these things happen, so I'm really slow to offer any advice on this. The overwhelming feeling I have is one of gratitude.
Man, that's a mind-blowing analysis of the of the structure of our family's thought adjuster assignment. There, Seth. Thanks for that.
Huh. Yeah, that really makes me think too. I guess I always thought that Joel and Matthew were like the sweet, good ones in the family, and the rest of us were just kind of along for the ride. All right, we got another brother here. Joel, you're here. Joel he runs a business that I have no idea what it really does. I know it has something to do with air conditioners, but beyond that, he tells me and it just goes right out of my head. He starts talking and the boring things of conductors or whatever he does, it just will not stay in my brain. That said, he is the sweetest of all of us. And, really the Urantia Foundation missed out by jumping at Chris so early, because Joel was like right there this whole time. That's it.
I'll jump in here and I'll just say this is Chris's favorite brother, Joel.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, Joel Wood here, fourth brother. I sell pumps and pump accessories is the easiest way to say it. It's one of those jobs that they don't tell you about when you're a little kid, and then they ask you what you want to do when you grow up, and then if you don't have a good idea what you want to do, you'll end up doing something like that. It's been interesting trying to, when this topic came up, I was like, well, what did we do? I can't think of anything about our family. But I've been trying to think back on what was different about our family? When did I remember the Urantia book being part of our family, or our family being a little bit different? And I remember we had like Friday night study groups, and that was a big stressful thing because we'd have to clean up the house, like literally push brooms and shovels to kind of like clear the way for having guests over. But then people would bring their kids, and that was usually pretty fun. But that was kind of, I guess, one of the first things. But we did Santa Claus, we did Easter Bunny. We didn't go to church, but that didn't seem that strange. A lot of kids don't go to church when I was growing up. We had the 5.5-year-old birthday gift. You guys remember that? I remember
They didn't do that to the older ones.
Yeah, it might have been just something Cindy came up with. But it was like I got The Wizard of Oz on VHS when I was 5.5, and then I remember Mark got a bicycle, and I was like, "What? You got a bicycle and I got a VHS?"
Was that to
to
mark the
celebrate.
arrival of the adjuster? Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, that's it. It was to celebrate the arrival of the thought adjuster, and I think I did that for my kid, something like that. But he probably already had it. But that was something different a little bit. Kind of sharpen on what Matt said. He laid it out pretty well. I don't think we were pushed towards anything but I remember when I was curious and I had a question and I was trying to fit all the pieces together, the answers were good. And I try to do that for my kid. Sometimes it's hearing through the noise that the question they're asking is coming from a place of like deep contemplation, and it's time to like try to give them a bigger picture instead of just giving them a 2-second answer. And trying to move on. But like, so I don't know. Like, I remember I was like 5 and I was trying to figure out God and Jesus and everything, and ask, and like laying, I was sleeping on the side of the on the floor next to my mom's bed, and like kind of waking up and being like, hey, can you tell me, like, is the guy on the dollar bill, is that God or is that Jesus or who is that? And she was like, no, that's a president, that's not. I'm like, well, why do we put a president on a dollar bill? It doesn't make sense, shouldn't it be God? But trying to fit all those, like, who are these people? And, is it just the guy with a white beard, or and getting the fuller answers. Other little things, I feel like the parenting style our parents had was free range. Like, they would just let us go. Conferences, like Seth said, I remember there was one where there was like a bar area or something. There were people who weren't part of the conference hanging out, smoking and drinking, and there were pool tables. And I was hanging out with these like high school or college kids, and they showed me how to like jimmy the pool table where you could play for free without losing your quarters. And they taught me how to play pool, and it was like thinking back, that was pretty weird. I was probably like 8 or something, or like too young to be just let loose with random people. Or going to the Spirit Festival in Kansas City, which was kind of like a big oversized block party cultural music event. And we would have a home base and be let loose. And, it's like, come check in here if you need a drink or food, and we'll be in this area, but you can go and do whatever you want and go have fun. Can't imagine doing that with my kids. So I'm thinking about it now, like, how would I'm such a helicopter parent myself, and it's hard to like, so try to put myself in that mindset that our parents must have been in. And I think it's faith and trust, and maybe in like the angels, and that everything's going to work out. And, like, I remember my dad telling me, maybe in high school, saying something like, sometimes if you're in a really bad situation and you need help, say out loud what you need, because the angels can't read your mind, so by saying it out loud, you can kind of make things happen that you would never be able to create on your own. And so it's that kind of like, trusting that there are good forces out there that are trying to help us and lead us in the right direction. And then like, okay, so then it's, can you let your kids go to a music festival and run I remember when I was like 15, they let me go across country with a group of high school kids to go to a weekend music festival that I just can't even imagine. But they just, I guess, had a strong faith that everything was going to work out, and that was a good thing experientially for me to like get out and learn. You got to get out and do it yourself. You can't just be living under their skirts. So learning to let go, I guess I'm trying to think for myself, like, how could I, with my own kids, it's like, just, let them go get dirty, let them get hurt. It's, for me, I think about it, it's a trust thing with your partner too. Cause like, if I'm hanging out, if I take the kids to the park and our daughter falls off the swing set or something, and she gets hurt, I'll be in trouble. Like, my wife won't let me hear the end of that. So I think, thinking back on being a kid, like, there were days where, Mike would probably come home and the kids would have stitches or broken leg or, horrible stories. It's like, I guess you have to have a lot of trust in your partner that they're, honestly doing their best, and trust in the greater forces around us to try to, that you're not alone raising your kids, that they're, you're trying to get them in the right circuits and the right energies, and around the right people to mold them into the person they need to be. So that's me trying to introspect on our Urantia childhood.
Yeah, I think it's the greatest test of faith that I've had in my life is how I'm not just gonna lock her in the basement until she's 18 years old, and maybe after, because it's a big bad world out there, and for us as like a male dominated planet, my mind was changed by the female plight on this dark, scary messed up planet, and it's changed my whole perspective on the world. And it's not as pretty of a place as it was before. It's a very scary and dark place. But I do think that's profound analysis on it, man. Like that is real. Like just trusting that everything's gonna be okay is hard as a parent.
And maybe it would have been different if they had girls.
You know, there's a
John, I
joke.
think Mike might have actually turned out sane if he'd had one daughter.
I didn't know that you guys got 5.5-year-old gifts. I don't remember that. But we really were raised in almost kind of different stages. I mean, Seth and I, when we were like 10 years old, we had to be home by the time the streetlights came on. Whereas like Mark and Matthew, when they were 10, they weren't home from the bars until like midnight at least. That was
True.
back during those years when Mike owned a nightclub, so they were just out running wild and learning. All right. I don't really have anything to add to this other than the little things I have learned is that, or I think might be true, I don't know, is that it was good for all of us to be swept into a community that wasn't our parents. So whether that was Mike McIsaac being the Pied Piper and going around and starting his thing, I went to Chicago and got involved with the very active community in Chicago. And I did that independently of the family so that instead of this just being, we're doing this thing that our parents are doing, instead it was, here's this community that I belong to and it's mine. So I kind of think that that is something to do with how we made this leap from being kids who are raised by Urantia Book, readers to being Urantia Book students ourselves. But I could be wrong about
Yeah, and
that.
I just wanted to take the time to thank you, Chris, as your second favorite brother. It's rare that we have this many brothers in one place, and it's really been a special, special thing to be a part of. So thanks for forcing it on us, Chris.
So we're bringing in the moderators now to try to keep
No,
us on track.
you guys are doing well. Go for it. You guys are doing well. You're bringing in some intimate stuff.
Yeah.
I remember, I don't remember exactly the year it was, but Sharon and I were traveling around the country in a motorhome, and we visited you guys. You probably don't even remember this because of all the activity in your house, but we visited you guys I think it was a Friday night, and it was probably one of the most disjointed study groups we've ever been to. It was a lot of fun, something that we totally didn't expect. But you guys had something I wasn't used to. You guys were just allowed the run of everything, and you were good. You were really good kids.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how long ago that was. It's so.
And the world was a different place then than it is now.
Yeah, you're talking about being allowed to stay out late and your parents let you roam. It was definitely a different place. And
you can't do that today, I don't think.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, and hats off to them.
But I do remember at the study group at your house, at break time, everybody scattered. And Bill and I were sitting there by ourselves. We didn't have any kids for you to play with.
Ooh, we got some questions. Guys. Chris, I'll moderate here. Chris, have you overcome the urge to laugh during solemn occasions?
Oh, I can't keep a straight face during solemn occasions. I remember being at a study group where people were praying and Noah was there, and Noah started giggling and I started giggling. It was the most inappropriate thing we could possibly do, is start giggling during prayer time. But it was what we did because, I don't know, can't keep our straight face. So yeah, I think there's a trick to being an adult that I don't think any of us quite learned, which is, turn on your adult brain and turn off your kid brain and stop trying to think of everything as a potential punchline. But we certainly do that.
Good answer there. Seth, am I correct in remembering you gave a plenary speech at one of the summer study sessions, possibly even more than once?
So yeah, that's true.
Great answer.
There's actually a good lesson I learned from one of Seth's speeches, which is that, so this would have been 2007 or 2008, 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. And I wasn't being asked to give speeches yet or anything, but I knew I had a good joke, and that if I was ever asked to give a speech, I had a good joke ready to go. And then I was talking with Seth, and he's like, hey, I'm giving this speech, but I don't have any jokes. Do you have any jokes? And I gave Seth my good joke. And it was a real learning moment of, you know what? I don't care that I've thought of this joke 5 years ago and I'm going to use it. Seth needs a joke. Here you go. You get my best joke ever.
When you were growing up, I think this one might just be at all of us, but when you were growing up and peers asked about your religious background, how did you respond? Well, I've quickly figured out, kind of in my teenage years that, you know, if you don't have the answer can be provided for you if you ask for it. And so I kind of try and read the person and see what their intentions were in asking me about my religious background and give them the answer that they needed to move forward with either asking me more questions or just, buzz off please or whatever. I usually didn't get too specific about uh, any one aspect of it, but that we're founded in, I called it a spiritual, we came from a spiritual family, but we were not necessarily religious,
Oh,
was
Perfect.
generally my canned response.
yeah. I think you guys have already answered this question, but one is here is that if it's not only important if they're raised to read the book specifically, and so many Christians do not sit down and read the Bible. Do you see any comparison between people with Urantia values instilled in them and Christians who practice Christianity without reading the Bible?
I really appreciate that question, Jan. I think and I would say my answer's changed over time. That, at the beginning, I really felt like I was part of a very different movement than the larger Christian movement. We were, I wouldn't want to use the word cult, but it almost felt cult-like, that we were something separate. And as I've gone on, I feel like I'm part of the larger Christian community. We're all part of the people who believe in Jesus. And more importantly, we're all part of an even larger family that believes in God. And so I do think that there are a lot of parallels to that, and that, Jesus didn't say that you should read the Bible or that you should read the Urantia book or be anything. Jesus said that you would know his followers by the fact that they would love one another. And it's really the only thing we're called to do. So that's the only thing that I think of when I hear that, is that I'm getting more and more seeing us all as one community. So I think that there are those parallels.
I think if we could detach our religious and spiritual experiences from a book and turn it into real action, that's really where I'm at with it. So, like, even though I believe in the Urantia book, I've read the Urantia book multiple times, and I've grown up in a family of Urantia book readers, I feel no desire to continue reading the Urantia book right now. I've been downloaded. Take that thumb drive out and plug in other people when I can through real experience, and that's my whole goal.
So I see Mike Wood has joined us. I don't know if he knows he's live on a webinar or if he just thinks he's checking his email or something and he somehow ended up here. But Mike, you got anything you want to ask or say?
So Chris has a sign above his door, and it's actually a double-sided sign. And on one side, it says, try to act normal every chance you get. And I would say that was kind of our family. We never really thought of ourselves as being normal, but we tried to act normal when it served a purpose. But on the other side, which is kind of a pretty humorous quote, but I think has some real value to it, it says, the taste for human flesh grows, the Urantia book. And I think that's a really relevant quote, because I have always found the danger of people trying to cherry pick the Urantia book for little quotes here and there. And I always think, well, I want to read it in the context of the paragraph, maybe the whole section, maybe the whole paper. And if you start cherry picking stuff, then you can come up with quotes like the taste for human flesh grows and attribute that to the Urantia book. And I just think that that's kind of relevant. I see people do that a lot, and sometimes they don't realize that the person they're quoting wasn't Jesus. It wasn't a midwayer. It wasn't a seraphic guardian. It was some guy, maybe Rodin or they're quoting the Bible. which was just some guy. So it's like, I think that's a relevant quote, but that's kind of also pretty typical of Chris and his sense of humor is that's his sign above his door where you come in and out every day.
So in when I do give speeches, I often say this is my second favorite quote, and I say something, and it's because there's this silent. My actual favorite quote is paper 89, section 5, paragraph 4. I think is the taste for human flesh grows. It's a standalone sentence.
And it's probably factual.
Oh, it is factual because it's quoted.
I wouldn't know.
Hey, Matthew, there's a question in the chat that's for you, which is, have you run into any artists who know about the Urantia book, or any musicians or anything, or do you talk about it or anything like that?
I do know there's Daniel Donato. Daniel Donato's Cosmic Country is a Urantia book reader. So Daniel Donato is one that's kind of a new and up and coming Americana artist that I've certainly confirmed that he is influenced by the teachings.
I know Noah had me mail a Urantia book to one of the guys in String Cheese. I don't remember which one, but I think I was still at the foundation or whatever way. Anyway, I ended up arranging to mail a book to one of the guys in String Cheese for Noah.
Yeah, and people ask me why I like String Cheese Incidents so much, and I say it's like hugging your mother. There's this unexplainable goodness that they propel into their efforts as artists, and so again, I don't know if they're affected by the Urantia book specifically, or if they're hardwired into the same circuitry that is the actual important stuff, but they're certainly on the level, if you will.
Well, I would like to thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
If anyone has anything, please put it out there now. Wood Brothers, if you have anything else to add, please put it out. Or forever don't.
I think we can
Just-
consider the bottom of the barrel scraped.
And just want to thank you all the organizers, for putting this together. We're really appreciative for the opportunity to, if nothing else, see 5 of my family members all in one place and to share our experience with you. So thank you so much for putting this together.